You heard from me once, you'll hear from me again. I'm still working hard, no matter where I am. 'Cause this is not the ending. No, this is not my ending. It's just to be continued. It's just to be continued.
Tricia, it is so good to have you here. Thank you so much for jumping on to talk with us all today to share about what you've been doing in your business since we last talked to you on the podcast, which was, I had just looked it up, October 18th was when the episode came out. So, man, it has been some months. But how have you been and what have you been up to since we last talked?
So, it's been a lot, honestly. I've been volunteering with my local makerspace, Make ICT. I'm the events lead now for that, and I've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes at trying to build up, my events committee for Make ICT, and still continue to make and work on things. And I've had a few projects that I've been working on in the background, which I'm not used to doing things in the background. I usually get so excited about something, I just want to show everybody immediately. So doing this has been really hard because I keep thinking that, if I don't post something on social media, that, the algorithm is going to essentially read that as they're not doing anything anymore, so I'm not going to push. Not that it was that big of a push in the first place, but let's just, say that we all have that mindset about like, oh no, if I don't post today, it's going to like shadow ban me or something like that. Like there's always a worry in the back of our heads. But I've been telling myself that it's been good for me to kind of stay off social media in that sense, because then I'm able to focus more time at home. My daughter has started homeschooling with me, and it's been really good. Like it's been crazy to see her read and write. So in general, I'm able to focus on things outside of my job, which is important. I can't just make my entire life my job because I have a family to take care of. And it's been a good learning, balancing act.
Yeah, and that's so exciting that she's in school now. Like, wow, time flies. And are you creating any cool things at the Makers? Well, because I know when we talked last, you touched on a couple of different things that you were like, oh, I'm trying out this, but I think one was with fire, right? Or maybe a saw, and you're like, but I want to keep my fingers, or there was something like, like really cool,
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, it's mildly dangerous. But are you doing anything fun like that?
Yeah, so I had started with woodworking. That was like the first thing that I really delved into when I first started at the Makerspace, like a little over a year ago. And then I just started to have my interest go elsewhere because I felt too inept with woodworking at the time. I was like, oh, I'll come back to this when I feel more brave to try it. And so I moved from that to screen printing and laser cutting. So lately I've been doing a lot more of that. And throughout this past year, I've been going in a certain amount of days, like trying to get merch ready in time for events. And it's been a very interesting challenge, working with like screen printing, for example, because the process is so in depth, but the reward, like the payoff, is so worth all the effort and all the frustration from, trying to get all the little bits and pieces working as they should. And with laser cutting, I've been having to learn new programs like Inkscape, and I was never one to like vector before. I was always just raster. So working with like nodes and things, it just feels a little overwhelming. Instead of just drawing the line, and if I don't like it, I'll just Control Z and redraw it. But now I'm like, no, I can draw it, leave it alone, and then just move nodes around. But when you do that for an entire line heavy piece, it's like it feels overwhelming.
Yeah.
So I'm just like tackling it in little bits and pieces to get myself used to it. Other than that, I've recently started working a little bit in 3D printing. I'm still super brand new. I just took like the basic class last week, so I'm super new. But I have that robot arm that I posted about, and it has a 3D printing attachment. So I've just been trying to get that working. And you know, it's actually really weird because it can draw for you, and I have like issues with that where I'm like, but I can draw. What do I need it to draw for me? I don't understand. So yeah. I don't know exactly what I'm going to use it for yet, like specifically, but some people said, oh, you can use it to like write thank you cards. That way they're like, you know, you handwrite it once, and then you can have it like write it over again. That way it's still your handwriting, but it saves you time. And I'm like, I don't know how many orders you think I'm getting right now. but in the future, I'm like, oh yeah, that would help speed up the process. But I'm also planning on closing. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, even just at your events, if you can get it, which I don't know what kind of power it needs, but if I saw a robot arm, I'd be like, what is this? And then you draw them and you're like, okay, that is a robot arm, yes. But now look at all my art and see what I'm doing.
That's true. I could have it do some sort of like demonstration or something like that, and maybe I don't know. It's not like
charge
fully clear
more.
To me exactly. Oh,
I mean, yeah, for no reason other than it got you here.
Yeah, honestly, but yeah, I mean, even the events lately, it's just been hard because I want to find my niche audience, and it is so niche because every event I go to, I feel maybe a little out of place, I guess, sort of. I'm like, I'm an artist. I do, you know, deserve to be here just like any other artist that, you know, paid to be here. But I feel like everybody else that's doing something, I guess, either they're doing fan art, whether it's in like a less anime type of fan art where it's like, you know, sports teams and things like that. It can be a little discouraging at times because I'm like, oh, well, of course people would want to buy stuff like that. But they might see my work and not immediately understand. And granted, not everybody has to, you know, it's for the people that will understand. So sometimes it can get a little discouraging waiting for that person and those people that are going to come by and be like, wow, and really resonate with your work. And so I try to be like patient about it and not to compare, because it's not healthy to have that mindset. And it's not to say that those other people who are making that work don't deserve to be there either. So I don't want to get into like a jealous or, you know, disparaging mindset, because we're all just trying to, you know, share our work, make money, because obviously that's the point.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's killer, because if those watching right now, listen to the episode and the show notes, because you can do fan art, and like you made that distinction to not do that, to only do, for the most part, as you were talking before, like your original thing. So I can imagine that too, just being like, I could be doing this, and I've done this in the past, but God moved me towards this direction. So it's like, oh, so I can just like, I can feel that too, like for you, even though it's not my journey, but just like that, being there and seeing like what you've done in the past compared to now, like, and I always think the same too with original. Like, I love anything original, and I try myself to do like everything I can original, and especially with like small business owners and entrepreneurs, really, they are, as we talked about AI, using AI to write their postings for Amazon, to write their newsletters, their blog posts. And I was just like, cheating. It's cheating. This is not you. Like, the whole journey, at least in my opinion, is that you're learning and growing, and eventually maybe you can hire out someone to write your emails, but you're hiring a human, another small business owner. And so I don't know, I've just seen that recently too, and I find it so frustrating, where I'm like, I'm trying hard to write I write everything myself, and then to think like people are just like typing in, write this for me. I'm like, oh man.
Yeah. And I get their mentality about it, because it's like, well, we're all trying so hard, and I know that some people might feel like their effort is better put elsewhere. So I do understand where they're coming from, because it is really hard. Not everybody is very good at marketing themselves. So, big companies hire a person for that. Like, you are the marketing person. This is your job because you know how to do this. And so if someone could get that sort of help without having to like pay a whole nother person when they're not making money, I'm like, I get that. I really do. Like, it's rough on all of us right now.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, there's a certain amount of, and not everybody is the same. I'm like, some people use it because, they have other things going on, and it's not to say that they wouldn't pay another person if they had the money, but they don't. And I know how it feels to be in a position of like, wow, I really want to buy new merch, but I have all this other merch that's like sitting there, and I should be promoting that instead of being so like, wanting to go in this direction with merch that I just cannot afford right now. So, it's not, I have to hold myself to a standard of like, I don't want to be wasteful with my money just because I feel like I want this. Like, I have to be smarter about it. But I actually had a conversation with a friend the other day about AI, and he explained something to me that I feel like not a lot of people know. And, from the artist position, I'm like, we come at it from a very emotional, very like almost spiritual side of it. Even for people who are not Christians necessarily, they feel so deeply about the way that this takes from us, and the attitudes of a lot of the people that will try to throw it in our face and be all around arrogant. Like, they will take people's art and put it through AI and be like, look, I could do this in like 5 seconds and I did it better. And it's such a horrible like amount of disrespect that, I realized after talking to my friend that most people who are doing that are doing AI at like a level 1 or like 2, if you wanted to put it in like a sort of level. He showed me a picture of something that I could not understand when I looked at it. I'm like, what am I looking at? And he was like, this is like level 5 type AI work, but it's not just to, try to put down an artist. People are paid to do this for companies. And when I looked at some of the examples, I was like, wow, that is so involved. And most people don't do that. And he clarified that. Like, most people, your average Joe that's using AI is not doing this because this takes schooling. It takes years, commitment, effort. And most AI does not, that you see or, that people are using. So I was like, that I could totally be respectful of, because they're not trying to take anything away from people, and they don't have a general attitude that, makes you have to pray about it. So I'm like, okay, that's cool, because it, you get kind of bogged down, and I'm like, it's not the AI, it's the people. It's the people using AI, because if it wasn't AI, it would be something else. So I just have to focus on what I'm doing and try not to get upset about it, but my upset about it is not unwarranted. But I can't focus too hard on it, because I would just be upset all the time, because it is upsetting. So I've tried to back off from it and, tried to support artists that are, in my opinion, worthy of the support, because I don't think it's okay to take from people the way that a lot of these AI artists are doing. So in that case, I'm like, am I just going to complain about the AI artists, or am I going to support artists who have intention, they have heart, they have effort, and they have a purpose? So taking that a step further, I've been trying to find Christian artists that I can also support, because I'm like, I know we should be supporting people within the family. So it's like, that's other artists that are kind of more similar to me. I'm like, I just want to support us, like in a tangible way. And obviously, if we're all broke, that's kind of hard. But I'm like, even if you can't buy something, you can at least like share a post, support their posts on social media and everything. So I'm like, I'm trying to be more positive about it than just, remaining upset about the AI stuff.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I was going to ask, you are wearing your own original artwork too.
Yes.
For those who don't know. And did you
Yes.
screen print that, or would it, like, when you were talking about the printing, I was like, oh, I should have asked that then. But it's a very cool design.
Yeah, I actually have the tote with the same design, so I don't have to, like, stand in front of the camera like that. So the design was screen printed as well on my tote. And this one is the updated version, so it's a little bit, like, cleaner, and it has the name on the back, which is, I don't know if it's going to be reversed, but it says, "Agony cannot keep me." And so,
Nice.
I have been using my own merch just to make sure, like, it's up to quality, because, not any shirt that you find online is quality. And something I've learned from other screen printers is you have to quality check your work and everything. So, for this design, it was inspired from working through depression, and I was appropriately diagnosed after, I had given birth to my daughter, and I had postpartum depression. So after learning those symptoms, realized I had it a lot longer before that. And then now I'm at a point where I'm realizing that a lot of the symptoms are similar to ADHD. And so I'm starting to feel my way through that. So I'm sure that at some point, some artwork that I make is going to reflect that as well. But a lot of my work, I want to have a point, a purpose to it, something that is good. And this piece, which I shorthand as just the agony piece, like, agony tries to explain to people who don't suffer with depression what it feels like to suffer with depression. And it's also for people who do have depression to be able to know that it doesn't last forever. So it's like, it's got like a double purpose to it. And I'm just hoping that more of my work, as it comes through inspiration, obviously, will reflect that. Because, sure, I like making pretty things, but I also like making functional things. And speaking of functional things, part of me realizing that I most likely have ADHD is acknowledging those other symptoms that are more specific to ADHD. And I realized that I do this thing that I call ping-ponging, which is I cannot focus on a task for the appropriate amount of time to finish the task. So I end up realizing, or just the way my brain works, I'm like working on a task, and then partway through I'm like, I have this other task I gotta do, and I'll just walk over and start doing it. And then, rinse and repeat through all the tasks, and eventually I'll get some of them done, but I will often forget. Like, I throughout my life, I realized that I had memory problems, and that's just what I called it. But I'm like, no, I think I have, like, focusing problems. Like, if it's not stimulating enough for my brain specifically, I won't stick with it. And it feels weird to say that, because a lot of other people will say, well, everyone has a little bit of ADHD. And I heard someone who has been diagnosed with ADHD, and she explained it as like comparing somebody who has depression with someone who feels depressed, like someone who has chronic depression to someone who is feeling depressed, is not a fair comparison, because one has chronic depression, which affects them throughout their everyday life and hinders them in a myriad of ways, compared to this one person who is experiencing, feeling depressed for a limited amount of time, and then they go on with their lives. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a difference, and it's like the difference between having anxiety, like diagnosable anxiety, like an anxiety disorder, and then feeling anxious. Like, I would never say that I have an anxiety disorder, but occasionally I feel anxious, just like everybody does. So it's like the amount of that thing and how much it hinders your everyday life, or causes you to have to almost like find the way out, if I had to explain it. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing that. And I think you had told me offline that you were kind of weaving that into a new project that you're working on. Can you give us a preview of that? I know you're going to announce it more on your own pages, but I'd love to leave people kind of with like a hook as we get towards the end of this, is like, what are you currently working on? What can you share with us? And then we're going to be checking in with you as we go. So I think it's a really fun way to get us like, okay, let's go. We're waiting. We're excited.
Right. So I had, upon realizing this and trying to circumvent the whole ping-ponging thing that I do, I had thought about the fact that in existence, there's this thing that's typically either called like a task chart or a chore chart. So I decided to make one because I had access through the makerspace to a laser cutter, and I was like, well, I want to make something functional. And I'm not typically the type of person to just like put something together like this, but I did, and I thought about the layers, and I figured it out through Inkscape, and then transferred it to Lightburn, and then put it through the thing, and glued it together, and this was the prototype.
Whoa.
So, I think it's backwards, but I have everything listed down that, occasionally I would either forget or I would get distracted and just, like, walk away from and then have to do it later, so this helps keep me on track. So, the functional part of it is it has tabs in it. So I have the check mark on it, and if I check it off, I can just slide it in. And I wanted something like tactile, or like, what's the word? I wanted something that had some sound and like some snap to it. So like,
yeah.
And so when
fun.
Yeah, I had some people that I did a show and tell recently at Make ICT, and I had some feedback from people, and they were like, oh, it sounds good, and it looks fun, it looks almost like a game, and I'm like, yeah, apparently it's another thing for people with ADHD to gamify things to hold their interest longer, so I'm like, it's just becoming more clear. So,
it's
so
just
as
a
I
chalk
was...
pen?
I used Posca pens. Posca pens are like one of my favorite things. They're like paint pens. So, I just did what I like to do, which is word art. So it just made sense to do that. And I had been starting to use it, and it was actually working. Like it was making a difference in my life, and it still is. So I realized some things that I could do better, which was, make sure all the little prongs inside are where they need to be, because otherwise the tabs, when they come out, they don't really slide in as easy. And then now my current problem is I'll try to go like click it, and sometimes it'll go... Did my camera stop working?
You froze for a little bit. I can still hear you though.
There we go.
Oh, you're back.
Okay.
You're like,
so my current problem...
Oh no.
I know, I was like, but yeah, so my current problem that I'm in the process of fixing for V3 is sometimes I'll hit it and it'll go to the end, but sometimes it like will bounce off the side. So I'm still trying to like work through that. Like, yeah, that one didn't bounce all the way, or it bounced off. So that was like one of the issues with it. But I decided to make one for my daughter and let her pick all the colors and everything. So this was the one that she decided to do.
Faces.
Yeah, she wanted smiley
So cute.
faces. And I decided to like cover up these before I glued it together. I decided to cover them up and then spray paint the outside. And this material is commonly referred to as masonite, and so it's really like lightweight. Eventually I want to make these out of acrylic, but this is like a good cheap option for just working with the prototype. So this is the V2. I like it better with like a color on it. And I got to just like try a different style. The functionality is mostly better, but the current issue I'm still dealing with is the bouncing. So, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'm actually just really enjoying like figuring out, okay, how do I fix this? Oh, that's a problem. So how do I fix that? Like it's been a really fun time to work on something functional that people clearly would benefit from other than me. And I started making it just for myself. Like, I'm like, okay, I have a problem, need to figure out a solution. And then once I figured it out, I was like, oh, this is actually helping a lot. So then there's more details on it, but I'll save that for later. Yeah. But yeah, so far that is what I've been working on, and I'm about to work on the V3 with an improvement for the bouncing issue. So I'm pretty excited about getting that all figured out.
Man, well, thanks so much for sharing that. It's so cool to see it. I was just like, wow, this is so cool. Which is why it's cool we can see each other, and that those watching can be like, this is cool. When can I get one? All of that. But we'll keep it there. Can you leave us now with some encouragement to close, or any final thoughts just to take us out of here for today?
Let's see. I would say most likely for the Christians out there, since I feel like, we would be able to relate the best, is please keep reading your Bible, like studying it. And if you're feeling lonely, please seek out other Christians in your area and in your church, and keep praying that God will bring people into your life. Like that's something very specific to me right now, that if anyone else is dealing with that, God's not going to leave you, dangling alone, out off in a corner. He's going to bring somebody into your life to help you and to keep you afloat, because that's the purpose of the church. And the world can be overwhelming, and my best advice for dealing with that is to reach for the life preserver. If you feel like you're drowning in the way that the world is, go back to the Word. Even if it's been a long time since you've prayed, just pray. Just let it out. God can handle our ugliest, worst, most raw thoughts, and that is honestly the thing that I love about Him the most, is that no part of me is going to be too bad, too ugly, too far gone. I can just come back. So my advice is just all of those things.
Awesome. Very well said. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. And for those watching and listening, we'll have all of the ways you can connect with Tricia in the show notes. But Tricia, thank you so much. It's been a ton of fun.
This is not the ending. No, this is not my ending. It's just to be continued. It's just to be continued.